3 years ago, I set out to construct the most powerful nootropic stack for focus, motivation, and sheer cognitive horsepower. I logged hundreds of hours, sampled endless amounts of cognitive performance chemicals, and ran beta tests with soldiers from the United States Army. And after massive experimentation and ruthless trial and error, my work had finally paid off. I found what I was looking for. The initial idea with the Cortex stack was to create a premium stack that was almost exclusively for executives and business people and entrepreneurs, because I built the stack partially from my experience effectively with the ingredients within this stack and building a company from $0 to $250,000 in annual revenue from bootstrapping in just a few years and getting major contracts with big companies. I realized early on I had to have my brain working really well in order to make that happen. And so I had been experimenting with nootropics for 4 years or so at that time, and I came across uridine and combined it with Citicoline in pretty much the same doses as ended up in this stack, and got significant results from it and kept taking it, and that no doubt boosted my performance throughout the time. But then that was neither, and that was sort of an illogical way to look at it. There's going to be many other people who aren't executives, business people, etc., who want to take a good nootropic stack and get good brain function out of it. Like for a second I was thinking like this is like we want to market it kind of like the iPhone and like this beautiful premium stack, but then I realized that's a bad idea. I mean, everybody could benefit from the Cortex stack. So secure a bottle at livecortex.com, what's being called the only pre-made nootropic stack that works. But just know, putting uridine and Citicoline together in the quantities that we did in this stack, uridine's a pretty hefty, costly component per kilogram. If you go look at uridine, a bag of uridine monophosphate powder or something versus like a bag of acetyl L-carnitine powder, you will see a stark difference in the price. So effectively, this is a premium nootropic for a price point that is similar to regular style nootropics like Alpha Brain and some others at $34.99. So secure bottle of the Cortex stack at livecortex.com. Primarily, we tried to target it being a natural version of modafinil, targeting verbal fluency, mental energy, endurance, and the honing in to sit down and work. Virtually everybody who tries it loves it and buys lots of bottles of the Cortex. And we've got customers who just like every couple months we see them buying 3 or 4 bottles at a time. And we give them deals too. It's awesome. So if you want to buy a couple bottles, email me, Ryan at livecortex.com. We'll give you a deal. And again, of what's being called the only pre-made nootropic stack that's actually noticeable to people. That's one of the things we wanted to do in making that stack, is like we tested everything. I've tried every stack there is out there, and some of them are good, but some of them are very subtle, which I guess is good in some sense, but sometimes you want something significant. So that's what we try to do with the Cortex stack. So I'm getting a lot of comments on what I should be talking about, which is exactly what I want you guys to do. So if you got things you want me to talk about, please comment in the comment section or email me, Ryan at livecortex.com. We'll talk about it. One of the topics is combining Racetams. So I want to talk about this because I think it is useful depending on the Racetams, but I want to really reference a specific study on rats that combines Racetams and demonstrates why it might be useful. Let me talk about my anecdotal experience, and we'll talk about specifically Aniracetam and Oxiracetam. Both of these smart drugs are super safe. Both of them work on the cholinergic system, but mostly they're ampakines. They work on AMPA receptors. And both of them release acetylcholine from the hippocampus. They provoke the brain, or invoke, I guess is the right word, to release more acetylcholine from the hippocampus. Probably happens elsewhere in the brain, but I mean, this is partially what's responsible for the memory benefits when you take them individually and when you take them alone. My anecdotal experience with them individually is Aniracetam is very stimulatory, makes me kind of want to multitask. It just gives me, a lot of mental energy. And then after an hour or so, a good calm focus comes in. I'm less stimulated, but I just want to focus. And then it tapers off after, 2 hours. I like to microdose with Aniracetam, and we did a video about that called, I think, microdosing with Aniracetam or something similar, which you should check out if you're interested in it, because it's super cool. Oxiracetam, on the other hand, is totally different. It increases verbal fluency for me. It gives me the ability to focus more. It's much more focused rather than multitask type of deal. It lasts a little longer, and it is prevalently effective for me. This is what I would use it for if I didn't sleep really great the night before. I would take some Oxiracetam and my verbal fluency and functionality would be back again. If I've got to crack out a long blog post or write a podcast, this has happened to me so many times where that happened, and I'm sitting there like trying to write the podcast, like, oh, I'm so slow, my brain's going so slow, my sleep deficit is really messing me up. 700 milligrams oxiracetam, 300 milligrams choline bitartrate, or when I've eaten enough eggs to produce acetylcholine in my brain for that week or that month, or I'm on an overload because I've been taking a cholinergic supplement for 2 months. I can take some months off and take Racetams and be fine, not need a choline source. Half hour later, I'm in and I'm ready to go, and it doesn't go away for a couple hours. It's pretty cool. So that's my individual experience with both of the Racetams. Those are my favorite Racetams: Aniracetam, Oxiracetam. Piracetam, we'll talk about that another time. I'm not really a fan. Piracetam I like. Racettam I haven't tried yet. I got to get that in, and I know that's surprising, right? It's like the only Racetam I think I haven't tried, and everything else, all the other Racetams I think I've tried and reviewed. So here's the abstract though that I want to read on Wiley.com, which talks about this specific thing, particularly the combination of the both of them. And I want to say my anecdotal reports kind of mirror this, and I do combine the two of them sometimes. I'm not really into combining things all that much that have individually powerful effects, but sometimes when I really want that, essentially the combination of both of the things that I talked about, right? That fast moving, stimulating capacity with the ability to focus, that even lasts a lot longer because you're combining the two with the increase in verbal fluency. I'll take Aniracetam and Oxiracetam in probably 500 milligrams and 800 milligrams respectively. So here's the study. The effect of two nootropic drugs, I'm reading on my iPad here, Oxiracetam and Aniracetam, on cholinergic neurotransmission in vivo was investigated in the rat by means of transversal microdialysis technique. They talked about basal release of acetylcholine. I'm going to skip a bunch of stuff and get to the important stuff. Oxiracetam tested at doses of 50, 100, and 300 milligrams per kilogram elicited a 63% increase in ACH release from the hippocampus. So this is like legit releasing 63% increase according to normal baseline of acetylcholine being released from the hippocampus of the rat. And then Aniracetam elicited a sustained increase in ACH release from the hippocampus. It was 58%, 120 minutes after the administration, without affecting choline efflux. I'm starting to see if there's anything else relevant. Yeah, the results indicate that Oxiracetam and Aniracetam could act on cognitive processes by stimulating the hippocampal cholinergic pathway. So we know that in conjunction with being ampakines and stimulating AMPA receptors, thus sort of producing a stimulatory response, that these are cholinergic. Folks always ask me, like, well, I don't really read that anywhere in the literature. That's it. We'll link to this on the website or somewhere. We put up the link to it with the image so that you can go check it out. It certainly is cholinergic, and it certainly does stimulate cholinergic pathways, particularly in the hippocampus. So, summing it up, absolutely, Aniracetam and Oxiracetam are good to combine in 500 to 800 milligram quantities, or 500 to 700 milligram quantities, something like that, respectively. For me, my N=1 is that it's both stimulatory and gives me sort of mental energy to want to do tasks, and it allows me to focus in on those tasks, and gives me verbal fluency and mental endurance. I sustain those results for a considerable period of time thereafter. Also, Aniracetam alone, not so much Oxiracetam, but absolutely Aniracetam for me is like working memory, probably one of the best working memory nootropics out there, besides perhaps Noopept and Huperzine A. And or artichoke extract and Shankapushpi in 500 milligram doses together, and then looking at the a study in rats, Oxiracetam induced a 63% increase in release of acetylcholine from the hippocampus, and Aniracetam 58 or so percent. They combined them though in that study, and ultimately determined that Aniracetam and Oxiracetam stimulate cholinergic pathways from the hippocampus. And so we've got anecdotal reports of it happening. We've got people suggesting, hey, maybe you should combine the two. And then we've got a rat study which says that it might be it might be plausible to combine the two to get a particularly hippocampus-driven outcome. Thanks for watching.